Hi, and welcome to About Our Hope, where we talk about God, Jesus, and the reasons for our hope. I am Callie Baker. I'm your host, and I am so grateful that you are here with us today. I have a special guest on today that I am so excited about. I have one of my best friends, Grace.
Hello. I'm like, do I talk now or just kidding?
It's perfect. Yes, talk anytime. I am so excited to have Grace on the podcast, and it just made sense to have Grace be the next guest on the podcast. Well, I was thinking about it, and you were the first person after Austin that I told that I was like wanting to start it, and that I told my like idea to.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fun. I remember I was like at the gym, had the idea, came home, told Austin, and then like right after, still in my gym clothes, like Marco Polo'd you about it, which is kind of fun. So anyway, it just made sense for Grace to be the next person. She's basically seen every reel that I have posted before it gets posted.
It's been the best. I get like the behind the scenes of the reels.
She's always my like, okay, tell me that this is okay before I post it. She was also the first person, maybe I'll cut this out, but the first person that I texted when I saw that Haley Rawls stitched my reel.
You gotta have the support, right? Like, I always will have your back. So.
Well, yeah, you're the best, and I've been so grateful for your support through this fun project and this fun journey. And so I'm really excited to talk with Grace today. We are going to talk about her conversion story, kind of similar to my episode with Austin. And me and Grace were talking at the gym the other day, and she said something along the lines of, like, I don't feel like I have a cool conversion story. And so I just want to address that because I love conversion stories, and there's a specific reason why I am wanting to talk to people about this. I feel like every conversion story, no matter what it is an amazing story, because it's the story of you coming to Christ, the story of you accepting him into your life, and that is the greatest story regardless of what that looks like. And I think that there is kind of a culture, especially in the church, of like if you grew up in the church, that you don't feel like you have a conversion story, you don't feel like you have that, but we all do. We all come to it at some point, and no matter when that is or how that is an amazing story. And the other reason why I want to talk to more people about this is because it's just one of those things that you don't really talk to people about a lot. Like, that's been one of the really fun things about doing this podcast, is people are way more open with me about their testimonies, their conversion story, and also like their struggles and what they're questioning in their testimony. And that has been such a gift in my life, to have those conversations in real life, in person more, where I feel like sometimes we just leave those conversations for like church. And so where you would, when you meet someone, you ask them how they met their husband, how they got engaged, with their proposal, you ask all those stories. We don't really ever talk about like our conversion story. Like even Grace, I don't know really a lot about like your testimony, I mean, or how it came to be. And so anyway, that is why I'm wanting to talk about this, because I think that it would just be beneficial for all of us if we get to talk about it more.
Yeah.
All right. So with that being said, that long intro, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Before we start, I just want to say, like, this has been like one of the easiest things to support. Like, Callie is so genuine and real in everything that she shares. And so, like, when she shared the idea with me, it was like she's so grateful for my story. I could like get emotional about it. Like, why am I already like getting emotional? This is embarrassing.
You're so sweet.
But like, seriously, like, it's been the easiest thing to support because it's something that is good, and it's something that, like, just even sitting here, like, you can feel the spirit, and we're in her bedroom and the spirit is here. And so, and it just goes to show that this is a good thing. And this is something that God obviously has put onto her heart for a reason. And it has touched now my heart as well as like so many other people. So it's a very easy thing to support. So thank you for having the courage to do this, because it's not an easy thing to do and to start, especially with the hate that you can get. But also it's like obviously the positive over trumps.
Absolutely.
Over trumps, is that the right word?
Yeah.
What's the word? Is that the right
Overrules?
word?
Yeah.
Overrules.
Trumps. Yeah, you can just say trumps.
Trumps the negative, obviously. But so I'm just proud of you. So thanks for having me.
Thanks. You're amazing. I really appreciate that.
Thanks.
I love you.
Love you too.
Okay, so let's get into it. Wherever you feel like you want to start, maybe with how you grew up.
Yeah. When Callie asked me about like my conversion story, I feel like, and I mentioned this to her when we were at the gym together. I feel like it, in a weird way, like I feel like my conversion story starts with my parents. Both my parents weren't raised in the church. I would say they probably had a belief in God, but not much more than that. My mom was raised Catholic, but definitely just went to church, Christmas, Easter type. And then my dad wasn't really raised in a specific denomination, but he was raised to know that there is a God. And so my dad joined the church when he was in college. Didn't really understand the commitment of like going to church after he was baptized and stuff. And then 3 years later, he met my mom. My mom found a Book of Mormon in his bookshelf and was like, "What, you're Mormon?" And he was like, "Well, kind of." And so then my mom became interested, and they took the discussions over again with each other. And then my mom was then baptized. They were then married civilly, and a year later were able to be sealed, because that's when they couldn't be sealed right away.
I didn't know that.
And ever since then, they've been dedicated to the church, and they've been dedicated to God and to Christ. And so they've now had us 5 children. I'm the middle of 5 kids. I have 2 older sisters and 2 little brothers, and we were raised in a home that was Christ-centered, and it was centered on the gospel. I grew up going to church every Sunday. I grew up having to go to Mutual. There was definitely weeks that I didn't want to go, but it was definitely an expectation in my home to do these things. Grew up going to seminary in the early morning. So I definitely was just raised in, I would say, very traditional home of the church.
Well, no, it's really interesting that your parents joined with neither of them being for like having their family be members at all. Like, that's really interesting. I didn't know that, because now just knowing you and kind of knowing your family a little bit, like, that's impressive that they like really took it to heart and really like went all in.
Yeah, I look back and I'm like, it's the dedication that they had in the gospel is really inspiring. It's something that I inspire to have in my home, because coming from both of their homes, my mom's parents weren't stoked. My dad's parents weren't. I mean, I don't think it wasn't like they weren't like we're going to disown you if you join the church, but they weren't all like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing." Like, it was kind of, there was a lot of negative connotations about the church, and that both of their families had. And so, like, my mom was raised to, like, hide from the Mormons when the missionaries would walk around.
Oh, my gosh.
But little did she know that 4 out of her 5 children have served missions now.
Yeah,
like, we're like, you're the one,
crazy.
like, now, like, people are hiding from us. And so, anyways, but, so I was raised in a home that the gospel was taught throughout every aspect of my life. And I am so grateful for that. But obviously there comes a time in your life where you have to kind of, like, realize, like, okay, like, is this what I believe? You go and have these little experiences. For me, and I was telling Callie this, I don't feel like I had this, like, crazy life-altering experience where I was, like, in the pits and I found Jesus and I came out of that and I'm now a dedicated member of the church. I feel like it was by the small and simple things that my testimony has grown, and it's still growing. I grew up in Colorado, and so I went to a school that there wasn't a bunch of members of the church. I was one of, a handful of members of the church. And so that really allowed me to have a lot of missionary opportunities in little ways. Obviously, I wasn't going around the halls like, here's the Book of Mormon. But I had opportunities to share my simple testimony to my friends that weren't members of our faith. And my friends that had a faith in God and had a faith in Christ, and they were curious about what these crazy Mormons believe in. And it was really neat to be able to find very similar, like, foundations of the faith that we all had in Christ. And I think that's kind of where my testimony began, is the opportunity of having to share why we do things the way we do. Mm-hmm. And it really forced me to have to realize, like, okay, why don't I drink? Or why don't I cuss? Like, why don't I do these things? And having to explain to them why don't I drink coffee? Like, people think that's so strange. And for a while I was like, I don't know, because I'm told, like, I'm not supposed to.
Right.
And then you learn, why I choose not to. It's not like anyone's, like, forcing me to. I choose not to do these things.
No, totally. So in Colorado, so you said there aren't that many members.
I would say in Parker, so I grew up in Parker, Colorado, and I would say comparative to like some other cities around the United States, I would say there's like a decent population of members of the church.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say like the stat was of our high school was, I think it was like 15 or 20% of the kids were
Okay.
members.
Yeah.
And so our school was like 2,000 people, so whatever that math is.
Yeah.
So there was still like a good chunk of people.
Uh-huh.
So it wasn't like I was one of two. Like I served a mission in North Carolina. The youth that I would like became close with, it was like them and one other person that were members.
Crazy.
And so I definitely had like a group and a support to be able to like
Yeah.
not be the only one. But
Are a lot of other people Christian or just kind of like...
I would say Christian was like, yeah, the main denomination.
Yeah, cool.
In like the city I grew up in.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so going throughout, so you're kind of like, as you're growing up in Colorado, you have to kind of learn why we do what we do because you have
Yeah.
more opportunities to explain, which totally makes sense. I mean, I grew up in Utah and I never really had those opportunities.
Yeah.
So I think that that's something that's really cool and like cool about your story, similar to Austin a little bit too, growing up in Vegas. But going throughout high school, are there some moments that you can look back on that you're like, okay, that was like even one of those small and simple ways that like impacted my testimony, impacted my belief in Christ? Or just kind of what was it like going throughout like your high school years? Or is that kind of what you were describing there?
I feel like there was definitely like if I think back to like high school, I feel like the points where my testimony grew was like I genuinely had incredible leaders like in the church. I had amazing young women leaders. I had amazing Sunday school teachers. And my testimony really grew through the example of them. And I'm still
Totally.
very close with a lot of them today. And so I would say they really helped mold, outside of my parents obviously, but they really helped mold my testimony and allowed me to have spiritual experiences. I went to EFY like 3 times, loved EFY.
Amazing.
And I loved Trek. So these are all like...
I loved Trek
I love
too.
Trek, and I know it's...
People
Trek is,
bag on Trek.
People bag on it. And it's where we like all dress up. It kind of sounds weird, but like we all dress
It
up
is
as like...
kind of weird,
Are the
but-
Mormon pioneers. We're in these pioneer clothing, and we have literal hand carts. Like I'm sure anyone that would see it from the outside world would be like, you guys are freaks. But...
Absolutely.
We walked the paths that the pioneers walked, and it was such an incredible experience seeing like what outside of the church, like what people went through to get to the west.
Yeah,
Wait, I was
totally.
in east. I'm like, man, we're on the west. To come out west. And so anyway, so all of those like things is, and honestly, my parents, they didn't force me to do these things, but it was very much an expectation. But I'm so grateful that they pushed me to have these opportunities because they pushed me into opportunities to have spiritual experiences. And maybe I dragged my feet to get there, but once I was there, I had the spiritual experiences that I needed to have. Whether it was feeling spirit in a fast and testimony meeting, or whether it was feeling like really good about a certain topic that was being taught in Sunday school or young women's.
Totally.
But obviously, with that being said, like I definitely had peer pressure in high school. Like I had like kind of 2 different groups of friends. I had my friends that were in my ward that went to church with me and that were in the same stake as me. But then I had friends that weren't members of the church, and yeah, they drank and they did things that I didn't agree with necessarily, but they were still some of my best friends, and they just want to invite me to the parties because they knew that Grace isn't going to come, or even if she comes, it's going to be boring for me an hour in, and so I'll leave. And so I definitely like had those moments in high school though where I was like, dang, like I was peer pressured to drink. Okay, sure, maybe I'm going to try it. And I was peer pressured. Like you just get peer pressured, like, Grace, say this bad word. And it's like, I probably said it in high school. And I'm like, why did I just say that? But you think it's like this cool thing. And so I definitely had peer pressure. But I knew like that wasn't my values and those weren't my morals. And so when I would choose to do something that wasn't in line with that, I immediately was like, why did I do that? And that was a spirit being like, don't put yourself in these situations. So I chose to put myself in situations where the spirit wasn't going to be present, but then my parents helped push me into situations where the spirit was going to be there. And there was such a difference, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful for those situations where I was pushed in to have those spiritual experiences.
Yeah, I love that. There's a lot of things that you just said that I think are really good. first of all, I think that it's nice to hear someone, and I had a similar experience where I feel like just on social media and online, all the things that we do growing up in the church get bagged on a lot. And especially like, EFY, Trek, Girls Camp, like just all of the things are really put in this negative light. But those things influenced me and my testimony so much growing up too, in a positive way.
Yeah.
And I had amazing leaders too that were like such good mentors to me at the time. And so it's like, I know that people have those negative experiences, and those are totally real and totally valid. And like, I've had negative experiences in the church too, but that doesn't mean that we need to like throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, there is so much good in these things that the church has set up. And so, so I love hearing that experience, like a positive experience growing up in the church, because I had a similar experience too. And then the other thing that I love is that like, you were friends with people who aren't members of the church too. I feel like that's another thing that a lot of people, that the church maybe kind of gets a little bit of criticism for, that we're like exclusive or judgmental, but it's like, no, so many people, like, we're happy to be friends with anybody. And so I love that like you had that experience too. And I think that that is really good, just a good experience to have through growing up.
I was grateful to be friends with people that weren't of my faith, because like, why are we here on earth? Like, we're here to be able to experience, obviously, life, but to be able to, like, meet people and to build relationships. We don't have to have the exact same beliefs. We don't have to have the exact same values. But guess what? Like, I love all of those people so much. And it really gave me an opportunity to be a positive example to them. But they were still positive examples to me in other aspects of their life. And I'm still friends with some of them today. And it's like, it also pushed me in those situations to really like choose for myself if I was going to, like, I could have easily done plenty of things, but it put me in those situations to choose, like, okay, am I going to choose this or am I going to choose this? And I'm grateful that I, for the most part, chose the positive, right, and the good. But, so I'm grateful it gave me opportunities to learn and grow in different ways. So
that's awesome. Okay, so high school, I know you went to a year at BYUI.
Yeah.
Is there anything, and then after that, you go on a mission.
Yeah.
So had you decided you were going to go on a mission when you went to BYUI?
So both of my older sisters served missions. I'm the third girl, and then I have two little brothers below me. And at the time when I was in high school, people would ask me like, oh, are you going to serve a mission? And I was always like, heck no, I'm not going on a mission. But I did feel this sense of pressure that I should go because my two sisters went. And then I was thinking, okay, well, my two brothers will most likely go. Am I going to be the only Hume that doesn't serve a mission? Like, how embarrassing. So I definitely felt this kind of the sense of pressure too. And my dad always would tell me, like, you'd be a great missionary. Like, you should really think about it. And my mom as well. And I'd always be like, well, I'm not going to serve a mission. So when I was a senior, I went and toured some colleges to decide where I wanted to go to school. And I was always very against BYU for some reason. And I was like, well, first of all, I won't ever get into Provo. I'm not even going to try. And so I didn't even apply. And then I went to some other schools, and I was kind of set, like, I was going to go to the University of Utah, or I was going to go to Utah State. And the people my friend I was with and his family, we were going, they were like, let's go to BYU, Idaho. Let's go, like, tour the campus. And my older sister went there, and I was like, I'm not going to be, like, I'm not going to go live in Rexburg. Like, I was like, this is the last thing. And I'm like, fine, like, we can go, we can check it out. And I was set on Utah State at this point because I wanted to be an elementary school teacher. They have an incredible program there. So we get to Rexburg, we park, and I'm not kidding, like, and this was one of those, like, pivotal moments for me. Like, I stepped out of the car and immediately felt the Spirit. And I know it sounds, like, so cliche of whatever, but, like, I immediately, and I got emotional. I was like, freak, I have to go here. I was like, this is not where I want to go. But I felt this feeling that I could not deny. Like, I literally couldn't deny that this was where God was guiding me to go. And so I went to BYU, Idaho, and I went there for a year. And during that time, I met some of the most incredible people, still to this day in my life. And I'm so grateful for their example. And I became really good friends with a few, like, return missionaries that had just recently came home from their missions, and they were huge examples to me, and they would always kind of, like, nudge me, like, you should go on a mission, you should go on a mission. And this was, my mindset was like, okay, I'm going to go to college, and if I don't get married within a year, I'll go on a
I love
mission.
it.
I look back, I'm like, what the crap? And so, my first semester of college, I was in a Book of Mormon class, and I was studying the Book of Mormon. And I should have brought the scripture. Maybe I can find it. But I was reading the scriptures for just like my Book of Mormon class, and I came across a verse in Alma. It was like Alma 30 something. And it was pretty much saying like, you will go and like teach people the plan of salvation and like bring others unto Christ, or teach the gospel of Jesus Christ, something. And it was just part of the reading I was supposed to read. And when I read that verse, I immediately like was overcome, and I'm like, I have to serve a mission. And like it felt like it was like literally speaking to me. And I immediately stand up and I go into my apartment, because I was in like a side study room. And I think my friend TJ and Aaron were sitting in there. And I was just like, guys, and I started crying. I'm like, I'm going on a mission. And they were like, what? And I like told them this experience, and then they like were so excited. And like from that point on, I like opened up my papers and I knew I had to serve a mission. So that was like one of the most pivotal points of my testimony then in college.
That's
was
amazing.
through the Book of Mormon. So
it's so cool. Both of those experiences of like stepping out of the car and feeling the Spirit immediately, and then like reading the verse and having it be like specifically for you. I feel like especially like the college one, I had a like somewhat of a similar experience as well with college, of like feeling the Spirit very strongly and knowing like this is the right decision. Mm-hmm. And I've been thinking about experiences like that recently, because selfishly I want more experiences like that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if we like I think that we can have the Spirit with us and like God will speak to us, absolutely, but I don't know if you get like many experiences like that where like mm-hmm. you will be overwhelmingly told this is the answer.
Yeah.
And so I just like those experiences are so cool, and I like cherish them so much, and like I just want God to tell me every decision.
And I'm like, every time I pray every night, like, can't that happen?
Can
like,
I overwhelmingly know what I'm supposed to do today?
It's so true.
So anyway, so those experiences are just so special. And then again with the scripture, like also so special. And that's what's so cool about the scriptures, that they can be for you specifically mm-hmm. when we're all reading the same scriptures, but God uses those to speak. And as cliche as it is, you know, if you want to talk to God, pray. If you want God to talk to you, read the scriptures. Like so that has been true for me so many times in my life. And yeah, just those are both incredible experiences.
Thank you.
Okay, so you decided to go on a mission. What was that experience like for your testimony?
The mission is like one of my most favorite things. I am so grateful that I chose to go. I guess honestly, even before I left, like I kind of had this wrestle of if I was going to end up going on my mission, because I was dating somebody right before I left on my mission. And at the time I thought I was going to marry this person, and I was like, okay, like they had asked me to stay home for my mission.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. They asked me to stay home for my mission, and in the moment I was like, okay, that sounds a lot better. I'm going to get married instead of go on this hard thing for the next year and a half.
Totally.
And this happened like a week before I was supposed to leave on my mission.
Oh my gosh.
And so I really was like struggling of like, because they were both good choices. In that time of my life, like choosing to be married in the temple or choosing to go on a mission, like they were both good choices for me at the time. And so I really had a hard time like knowing what I wanted to do. And I was praying and praying and praying. And I look back at that situation, and I would say, like, right now, I would say, like, in the moment, I was just, like, I, like, wasn't getting an answer. I was, like, so torn. Like, I didn't know what to do. And I felt like I needed to stay home and not go on my mission. And I look back at that situation now, and that's what my, like, heart was telling me in the moment, is to stay home for my mission and get married. But deep down, I always knew, like, you're going on a mission. But I didn't want to admit that. Like, I was, because of the, like, leaving your family for 18 months and, like, having to go to a new place and live with people you don't know, that's scary. That was
Absolutely.
A scarier option and the harder option than to stay with somebody that I was comfortable with, that at the time, like, I loved and I wanted to get married to. And so I remember calling, my mom was even torn for me. Like, she just, like, and she was, like, at a loss. She's like, this has to be your decision, no one else. And I remember my mom was talking to one of her really close family friends who was a mission president in Africa at the time. And he took the time to call me one night, and he was talking to me, and he asked me various questions about the situation. And then like the main question he asked me is, if you choose to stay, will you always wonder what if? And I was like, well, duh. Like, of course I'd always wonder what if I went on a mission. And so in that moment, I just kept praying, and I just was like, I have to go on a mission. Like, why? Like, I have to go. I'll always wonder what if. And so I chose to go on a mission, and clearly it's the best decision I could have made because of what happened on my mission, but then because it led me to meet my husband. I didn't meet my husband on the mission, but it led me to, like, I didn't marry the person that I was dating before, and my life would look very different if I did. And so I'm so grateful that I had people in my life to help guide that decision, and that I really didn't receive a super clear answer in that moment, but I knew that God trusted me. And I remember my mom told me that, like, or no, our friend, he told me that. He's like, God trusts you, and he's putting this decision into your hands. He's gonna trust that whatever decision you make is what you feel is best for you. And I think that happens in times. I don't think God's gonna always say, oh, do this, because we have to make decisions every day in our life.
Totally.
And in this point, like, I think God was, and I've had this many times in my life, I think God was trusting me, and he knew that, okay, these are two, like, good decisions. You need to choose. And clearly there was a better decision, because, like, I can't imagine not going on my mission. And so I feel like God puts the trust in us sometimes, and we have to use our agency to choose.
Totally.
And trust ourselves that that's the decision that we're needing to make.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. I feel like this episode has been good so far of, like, maybe personal revelation or just, like, receiving answers from God, because it's, like, a few different experiences of, like, a very clear answer, an answer from the scriptures, you get to choose answer, which is, like, really hard. And I totally agree with you that I think that like, I mean, I don't know, but I feel like most of the time that's what it is. Mm-hmm. Like, most of the time it's like, yeah, you get to choose. And that can be really hard. That's especially really hard for me and my personality type, because I'm like, just tell me the best option. Just tell me the best, and I will do that. I will be obedient. I want whatever you have for me, whatever the best thing is. But, like, the point of being on earth is agency.
To maybe
like,
not make the best decision and have to overcome whatever from it, or realize, okay, that actually wasn't a good choice. Like, I need to learn and grow from this. So it's
totally. So that's a great experience. I love that.
Thanks.
Okay, so you served your mission.
Yeah, so I served my mission. I feel like my testimony grew the most on my mission. At this, from like, obviously birth to, like, honestly at this point in my life, my testimony grew a substantial amount on the mission. And I think it's because literally your entire life is dedicated to serving and studying the gospel of Jesus Christ and to serving others. And you have no other worry in the world. That's all you have to do. And I'll be honest, I think I maybe read the Book of Mormon kind of, maybe, I don't even know, honestly. Not even once, maybe once before I went on my mission. And I remember in the MTC, we do, like, fake lessons to, like, practice teaching. And I remember we were teaching somebody, and we were studying before we started teaching this person. And we were studying about the Book of Mormon, and we were going to teach them the importance of the Book of Mormon and the truthfulness of it. And we were going to invite them to pray and to ask if the book is true. And I remember me and my companion were, like, talking about it. And that night I was, like, laying down. I'm like, how am I supposed to go and teach people? I was on my mission in Charlotte, North Carolina. Go and teach people in North Carolina about the gospel of Jesus Christ, introduce the Book of Mormon to them, and ask them to pray to know if it's true, if I have not even ever done that in my life. I was on my mission, and I had never done that in my life. And I immediately I think I had like 2.5 weeks left in the MTC, and I was like, I can't invite people to do that if I haven't done. I'm like, that's like, I feel like I would be a hypocrite for doing that. And so, and this isn't a flex. This is not why I'm telling this story. But I, like, this was something that was eating at me. And I was like, I have to read the Book of Mormon before I go to North Carolina. So I read the Book of Mormon in 2.5 weeks.
Wow.
Don't know how I did that. Understand parts of it, right? Maybe not all of it. And I remember there were certain nights that I would stay up and I was reading, because I'm like, I have to read this amount of pages each day or I'm not going to be able to finish. And I finished the Book of Mormon on the airplane on the way to on the way to North Carolina. And I remember finishing the Book of Mormon, and I was like, I really didn't have this crazy experience. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, it's true. It just was like, yeah, it's true. Like, I just felt like it was just this piece of like, what I just read is true. And I happened to sit next to somebody on the plane on the way to North Carolina, and she saw me reading my Book of Mormon, and she randomly had her Bible out next to me, and she was reading her Bible. And this sparked a huge conversation between us. And it was the first time that I was able to testify that the Book of Mormon is true, actually having read it and having known that it is true. And my first missionary experience outside of like the MTC as a missionary. And so that was a huge testimony builder for me, is really having those moments of like, hey, I actually have to put in the work to like know if this is true, because my whole life I've kind of just like relied on other people's testimonies and kind of just like, oh yeah, like I have the faith. Yeah, it's true. Like I don't feel any other way. And so
totally.
But even though that wasn't like a huge, crazy, like aha moment, it was like, to me, it was like a simple, peaceful testimony to myself that that's true.
I love that. Again, just another like answer from God of the peace. I love that. I think that maybe people who haven't experienced that hear that and they don't maybe see that as valid of an answer. But when you've experienced that, that peace, you're like, no, it's true. Like, and it's just like such a comforting, peaceful feeling. Like literally the peace that surpasseth understanding is like so real. So I love that.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's jump to, do you want to tell the story of how you and Austin met?
Yeah.
Both of our husbands' names are Austin, so
you
might get confused, but
it's a little confusing. So I came home from my mission in November of 2020, so during all the COVID stuff. I came home and I'll try, Callie knows I really like to tell stories, and sometimes I take a long time to tell stories, and it's one of my husband's not favorite things. Right, he tells me just to hurry up.
Spark notes.
Yeah, Austin's always like, just spark note. I'm like, but I can't. It's so good. But this story is actually one that Austin gets mad at me for, like, not actually mad at me, but.
Well, you can tell the whole thing, whatever you prefer.
I don't want to, like, this podcast could get long. Just kidding. I'll make it a smaller version. I came home from my mission. I had written that person that I was dating prior to my mission, during my mission. And I came home from my mission and I was convinced that I was going to now marry this person that I had been writing during my mission. And so I get home and I decide to move to Orem, Utah, like 2.5 weeks after I get home, just because I didn't want to go back up to BYU, Idaho. All of my friends that I had there were either gone or married. And I'm like, I'm going to have to start over up there. And it was during COVID. School was pretty much online. I didn't want to be stuck in Rexburg in the winter. So I was like, I'm just going to move to Orem. I have all my mission friends. A lot of my friends from high school are there now. And so I'm like, I'm just going to move there. And so I moved to Orem. And like the second day I moved there, I went to one of my high school friends' birthday parties. And there was a bunch of guys and girls there. And Austin was there. And honestly, the first day that like we met, like I honestly like don't really like, I remember meeting him, but it wasn't like, oh, he's cute.
Blown away.
No, like neither of us were like, we didn't really like, we noticed each other, but not like really. And he was there because one of my good friends from high school was mission companions with one of his good friends from high school. So you have all of these Layton high school boys now are friends with all these Parker, Colorado kids. And so
random.
Super random. And so there was a bunch of kids from Layton and a bunch of kids from Parker that were all hanging out. And so we started hanging out, and one of the like second times we start hanging out, me and Austin, this is like the first time we actually start interacting. And he likes to say that it happened over code names, the game, because we just like read each other's mind, and I guess we fell in love after that. Not actually. But that was like the first time that we had actually talked and interacted. And then there's like a few nights after that, we then were talking. Oh, I went home that night and I was like, I'm going to follow Austin on Instagram. And the only mutual friend we have is the guy that I was dating, kind of. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So I won't get into all of the nitty gritty of that, but it just was such a coincidence that they both happened to be from Layton. And it was just like, oh my gosh. And so honestly, me and Austin the next night we started hanging out, I walk into the apartment and I go directly to him. I'm like, how do you know so-and-so? And he was like, how do you know so-and-so? I'm like, well... So he gets the whole, not spark noted, it's like this whole story of everything that had happened. in my life up until that point. And honestly, from that day on, we like hung out almost every single night. And
you like, so you weren't really dating.
we weren't dating.
Yeah. The boy that.
No, we were not. I probably would have wished we were in those moments. Like that's what I was trying to get at, but it clearly wasn't happening. And so I just was like, I'm not going to keep putting effort into something that I'm not receiving effort back in. And I feel like I was being strung along a little bit. And so I'm like, I'm going to put an effort into somebody that's clearly showing me like what I deserved in the moment.
Totally.
And what I deserve now. And that was like a huge, honestly, like experience, a spiritual, like uplifting experience for me, that like God is very aware of me and my needs. And poor Austin, I put him through a lot those first few months because I was still going, like, I didn't really know. Like, I was with Austin every day, but I was still talking to this person, like, on the side. And it got to the point where Austin's like, you've got to make a decision. I can't keep doing this. And if you were to ask Austin, I asked him, like, why did you stick around for so long? Because I look back and I'm like, I was a brat. Like, I was not, I'm like surprised he stuck around for so long. And he was like, because I prayed and I consistently got the answer of like, be patient, like keep pursuing grace. And I'm so grateful for that, because if he wouldn't have done that, I honestly don't know where I'd be today. And
makes me like emotional.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, and so he was so patient for me, and eventually got to the point where he's like, I need to be honest. Like, and so he was like, here you go. And then that was another experience where I knew what I needed to do, but I was scared to make the decision, because it's something that I thought I wanted for
years
so
at that
long,
point.
years at this point. And right before Austin had told me that, this person pretty much told me everything that I've been wanting to hear for 2.5 years. And I was like, oh my gosh, now like you're telling me everything I've been wanting you to say. But I have this incredible guy that I only met 2 months ago that I feel really good with. And I remember telling Austin when he gave me like my ultimatum. He's like, if you choose to go to the cabin, because I was going to go to the cabin with this guy's family. If you choose to go to the cabin, he's like, I'm not going to just be here. Because I was like, well, maybe I'll go and like figure it out. And then if it doesn't go right, I'll come back to Austin. Austin's like, no, like that's not how this is going to work. And I'm so grateful that he did that, because that really made me realize like, holy crap, like I need to really figure this out. And
You're going to lose
I
Austin.
could lose Austin. And I remember going to the temple and like standing outside the temple and just sobbing and like praying and like asking God, like, please help me know what I need to do. And I remember I had this overwhelming feeling, and it was like myself talking to myself, was the Spirit most likely speaking to me of like, why are you even asking me what you should be doing? You know what you should be doing. I knew I needed to be with Austin. I knew that he was, and I don't want to like bag on this person. He's a great guy. But in like for my life, like I knew I needed to be with Austin, and God genuinely like led me to him like through various experiences. And so I'm so grateful for like that I was able to, honestly, in this situation, I'm grateful to Austin for being patient and for continually pursuing me, even though that was a very intimidating thing for him to do, because it's like, he's like, it's me for 2 months or this kid for 2 years, like choose. And so I'm just grateful that for those experiences that we both were able to have too. And I can't imagine having a better marriage. And now we have a little girl, and I'm just so grateful because he truly pushes me to be a better person. And he just helps me in areas that I don't know if anyone else could have helped me in. So
it's amazing.
Thanks.
I love it. Makes me emotional because these are like our best friends, some of our best friends. And so I can't imagine if it didn't work out either.
Wouldn't be here, I'll tell you that.
I feel like everyone's going to want to know just like the end of the story of the ultimatum of just like you telling Austin.
So something that was really interesting is the night after Austin gave me that, I was sobbing like in my car, and I went to my parking garage of my apartment and I was sobbing, and I was like, I don't know what else to call, so I called my mom, and I'm sobbing to my mom, and she's like, what the heck is happening? And my dad so happened to be like sitting next to her. My dad is not the most emotional person. Honestly, neither of my parents are super like into their emotions. And so, but my dad, and I've never asked my dad for dating advice or anything. And he's never really given it other than like, I mean, he's a dad of some daughters, right? Like it's not
little
always
comments
super exciting
yeah.
about them dating people.
Totally.
And I remember sobbing to my mom, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And my dad, I honestly can't remember the exact questions he asked me, but he said, Grace, can I give my opinion? And I said, yeah. And I can't remember the exact questions he asked me, but he just asked me these certain questions that was really like made me think. And I was like, okay. Like, and I remember the questions he was asking me just clearly was like, I was like, I know what I need to do. Like, but then I was still like denying it. And so then I was with some of my friends from my mission, and I was talking to them, and they clearly wanted me to be with Austin. And then there are a few times this guy had FaceTime me over the span of like 3 days that I told Austin I had to think about it. And every time this guy would call me, I felt no emotion. Like I literally was just like numb. But then if anyone ever asked me about Austin, I was like sobbing. And I'm like, okay. I look back, I'm like, that was clearly the spirit like letting me know where my feelings and emotions were truly at.
Yeah.
I was terrified to lose Austin, like absolutely terrified. And so I finally decided. And I was like, man, this feels like a Bachelor moment. And I was like, do I need to show up to his house with a rose? Like, and so I texted him, and this was like, we hadn't spoken in like 3 days. I remember the first day after we had talked, I like sent him like a hilarious Instagram video, hoping that he'd respond because I wanted to talk to him so bad. He just opened it, didn't respond. I'm like, oh, he's really like, he's serious. And I just remember texting him and saying, hey, like, we need to talk. And I went, and he came out to my car, and I could tell, and he told me he was a mess those few days. Like, he was just like crying. Like, he was just like, I potentially just lost my future wife. And he got in the car, and I also knew whatever decision I made was who I was going to be marrying. I knew that if I chose to like be with Austin, like this was going to be my husband. And he got in the car, and I was like, well, I think I brought him crumble cookies, honestly, because that was like our thing. We'd always get the new crumble flavors every week.
So cute.
And I just was like, I choose you. It sounds so like,
no, it's so sweet.
But I was like, I choose you. And I'm like, and I don't know why, like, I even had to like think. And so honestly, I'm grateful for that experience that we had, because like we truly had to choose each other. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't this easy road that we went down to eventually be married. But I'm so grateful that he stuck out and was patient for me. And so, yeah.
It's such a fun story. I feel like everyone, I mean, I know I love hearing people's like dating stories, and
it's fun,
especially for anyone who's listening who is in that phase of life right now. I feel like there's a lot of wisdom that you can take from what Grace just shared of like, do you feel peace about it? Do you not want to lose someone? Like, there's just so many good things you can take from that. And so I appreciate you sharing that story.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so just kind of like moving on, life since then, we can kind of just maybe like talk about where is your testimony at right now.
Yeah.
And then we can also talk about like becoming a mom and all the things. But
if I'm being honest, after I finished my mission, like on the mission, you have an hour plus every day to study the scriptures. And you're studying for others that you're about to go teach, but then you're also studying for yourself and your own growth. And I loved it. That was my favorite part of my mission, was getting to study and learn and read the Book of Mormon many times and truly know what I was reading about. Coming home from the mission, and I think a lot of return missionaries could probably relate to this, is studying after the mission is so different. You know, when you were saying like, you just wish you could always have these like spiritual experiences that were big. Genuinely, the mission is like that. You're having these strong spiritual experiences every single day, and all of a sudden you come home from your mission. And it's not that you're not having spiritual experiences. It's just not as prominent in your life because you're working, you're going to school, you're dating, you're
totally.
a wife, you're right. There's all these things. And so it's like not all about that. And so coming home from my mission, that was like really hard for me. And it was really hard for me to dedicate the time to study and to read my scriptures. And if I'm being honest, I've been home now for almost 5 years, which is weird, 4.5 years. And I'm still trying to figure it out. And I've known, I've talked to you about this. I've talked to some other friends about this, that I'm still trying to figure out, like, I need to study. Like, I need to, like, dive into the scriptures again. And most recently, like, I've been feeling that pull even more because I know it's true. And I know the impact that my life will be made and that will make in my life. And, but I feel like I just have a very simple testimony. Like, I know that Jesus Christ is my savior. I know that the Book of Mormon is true. Do I read it every day? No. I'll be honest, I don't. Do I need to? Yeah. Do I need to read just scripture every day? Yeah. And I know that we are children of God, and I've learned that so much through having a daughter. And like, it's crazy. I'm getting emotional. It's crazy knowing the amount of love that I have for my daughter. And it's like a small glimpse of knowing like how much God loves us. And obviously, like, I can't comprehend anyone loving my daughter more than myself, but I know that God loves her more. And it's a similar feeling that I felt various times on my mission of meeting people and truly not knowing them, but feeling this overwhelming feeling of like God's love for them. And so, I'm so grateful for the opportunity that I have to be a mom. It's something that I've dreamt of being my entire life. If you ask anybody from the age of, like, my preschool teacher called me like the mom of the priest. Like, I'm just a mom. Like, I am. And all of my friends, like in high school and everywhere, will laugh and just be like, yeah, Grace is a mom. And I've always wanted to be a mom. And so being able to have the opportunity that God has given me to be able to be a mom I'm just so grateful for. That was kind of a side tangent of that, but
it's great. It's so good. I really appreciate you saying that and being real in the fact of like, I don't read my scriptures every day. Mm-hmm. And honestly, like, I feel like I am kind of like studying the gospel every day, but like, do I have a dedicated like scripture study every day? No. I think that would surprise a lot of people maybe, but like, it's so real. And it's something that I feel like we're all trying to figure out, especially as a mom, especially as a wife. Like, no matter what you're doing in life, like, you're busy. And so making that time and figuring out what that looks like in this phase of life is so real. And so I appreciate you being so real about that. And I think that so many people can relate to that. I know that I can. And I think that, like, at least for me, what has really helped is like listening to music or listening to having some like bringing the Spirit into my life every day, even if I don't have like 15 minutes to sit down and just read the scriptures. Sure. So I love that.
And it's something that I think people, I don't know, I think there's people in my life that are so good. And like, honestly, you're a really good example to me about like, and I know maybe you don't study every single day. And I'm sure this podcast has helped you study more than you have had to in the past, because studying with a purpose is so powerful and you learn and grow so much from it. And so I think over the last few years, like, I'll be honest, like, I can't sit here and be like, oh, like, I love reading my scriptures and like, I feel like the Spirit when I read my scriptures. If I said that, Austin would laugh at me. He'd be like, when did you read your scriptures?
Isn't Austin so good at reading his scriptures?
He's so good at it. And that's something that, like, he's such a good example to me, is like, without a doubt, he's reading his scriptures every night. Whether it's a few verses, without a doubt, he's kneeling to pray every morning. And it's things that I see every day. And am I applying? No. Do I need to be? Yes. My husband's such a good example to me of that. And I could throw out all the excuses as to why, like, oh, like, I was in school, so the last thing I wanted to do was read more, or, oh, I've been doing this. And so I think what you were saying is, like, finding ways, like, genuinely, like, this podcast has been so good for me because it has given me an opportunity, like your last podcast. Like, I sat there and I was able to learn and I paused it and was able to ponder and think about the things you were saying. And so even, like, I think finding ways to just even do things like that, like we were saying, podcast or music. I feel the Spirit so strongly with your music, and like finding what works out for you And I am still trying to figure that out. And put in a plug. I just graduated college.
Yeah, I was literally going to say when you just mentioned that, I was like, yeah, we have to say Grace
I'm a
just
college
graduated
graduate, guys.
literally last week. Congratulations.
But genuinely, like, I feel like a lot of my free time outside of obviously being a mom and doing all the various things was I was doing school or and so now that I don't have that to worry about, and I was just telling this to Austin, like, I really want to dedicate, and I feel like I have the time to dedicate this amount of time. I think at different phases of life, people don't. But for me, I'm like, I can dedicate 15 minutes of one of Jane's naps to studying the scriptures or studying a conference talk. And so I just was talking to him this last week of like, I'm really like, and I've been feeling this pull, I think. When was it when our friends went to Vegas and Michaela asked us, like, was that last
October?
Was this like, yeah,
Yeah.
before New Year's? She had asked us what our New Year's goals, and
Yes.
this was one of my goals I brought up. Clearly, it's now April, and I've done nothing about it. And every year I'm always
So
like, I'm gonna
real.
do Come Follow Me this year, and nope. And so,
We're so bad at Come Follow Me too.
it's so hard. It's so hard. And so that's like, and I've been feeling that pull for now months and months and months. And over the last few weeks, I finally feel like I'm starting to like receive some inspiration of how I want that to look in my life. And not saying like I shouldn't have been doing it sooner, but like I'm just being real.
Yeah.
And so
I love that.
I don't know, whether it's like I talked to my sister today, and she's like, I just try and read at least one page of the Book of Mormon every day, or the Bible, or wherever she's reading. Mm-hmm. And so find out what works for you, because it truly is going to grow your testimony.
It's so true.
The reason I can testify to that is because my testimony was the strongest and it grew the most when I was doing that every day on my mission.
Yep.
And I wouldn't say I've lost my testimony, but it stayed stagnant. I haven't had any crazy spiritual experiences for a while, and that's no one else's fault but mine. And so finding the time to dedicate to have spiritual experiences again, but then also like, I think pondering and like really like sitting, I have a hard time sitting in silence and thinking. I always have to have like a podcast on in the car. I always have to have or a Marco pulling someone back. Like, and so like really forcing myself to like, it's okay to just like be still.
Yeah.
And so anyways, that was a long tangent,
that.
but
No, I love that. And I think that what you said about like, well, maybe you didn't say this exactly, but I think that like having a goal in mind, like if it is a goal that you want that in your life more, to like set that as a goal, to tell people about it. And even if it takes months to do it, like set that as an intention. And one thing that I found for me is to like start praying about it. And this is something that Austin always says is like, you can pray for the desire for something.
Yep.
So like praying for like, please give me the desire to study and to like make time for it today. And to like, so just like little things like that. And so I think that's awesome. I think that that's so real. And yeah, I love it.
That's kind of where my testimony is at right now.
Yeah. But honestly,
a long
like,
answer to the original question you asked. But
and I feel like we're all always so hard on ourselves too, because you're amazing.
Oh, thanks.
You have always been an amazing example to me. And like, I have always been able to tell from even when I very first met you how strong your testimony was.
Thank you.
And one of the things that I'll mention really quick too that I love about you that like I see in your testimony is you are such a good missionary. Like I have seen you, like I didn't serve a mission. I don't even know if I've ever mentioned that.
She hasn't. People would be shocked. You'd think she would have. But it goes to show, like, do you ever feel like this sense of like, not judgment, like oh, like I didn't serve a mission? Do you ever feel like kind of not like
honestly
bad
a
about
little
it?
bit? Like not like, I mean, I've never felt like judgment from anyone specifically. Like I feel like if anything, it's just like my own feelings.
Yeah.
But I think that like when people, it's more when I hear people say in the church things like everyone should serve a mission, or like when girls will say something like, I think every girl should serve a mission. Like it's when things like comments like that are said that sometimes I'm like, because I mean, I can just like, we can talk about this really quick.
Sorry.
I know it's great. I was planning on serving a mission from the time when I got my patriarchal blessings when I was like 14. I was planning on serving a mission and I was so excited about it. Like and I think that this is one of the reasons why it was good for me, like why things worked out the way they did, because it was really good for me to prepare to go on a mission.
Yeah.
Like it really helped me through my like high school and teenage years, I feel like. And when the time came, I just didn't feel like I should. And every time I would go to one of my friends' farewells, I would it would bring it back up again of like, should I go on a mission? And I would pray about it, and I would literally feel like nothing. Like just like,
which I think is so important to like share, because I feel like there's a lot of girls or youth or college kids out there that feel kind of that sense of like, oh, is it bad if I don't go on a mission and stuff? And I think it's so good to hear experiences where you didn't feel like you needed to serve a mission.
Yeah.
Even though you felt your entire life, but then it got to the point where you're like, no, actually, like you weren't feeling drawn to do it.
Totally.
And I think it's so important to hear that side of it, especially as girls, because I think there's a lot of pressure on girls now that the age was changed to go on missions. Well, why wouldn't you go on a mission? Why not? Right. And it's like, well, no, it's such a personal thing that like truly needs to be a decision between you and God.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking every time you like post a new podcast, I'm like, this is your mission. This podcast is your mission. And this podcast is reaching thousands of people eventually, hopefully even more than that, right? And so it's like you're sharing the gospel and doing this thing, and like I just keep having that feeling of like over the last few weeks, like this is your mission.
That's sweet.
And this is what you were called to do.
Yeah.
So
well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that I had to like come to and like realize was that you can be a missionary without going on a mission, and had to just like accept that for my life, because I had this desire to like be like a missionary and to share the gospel. But I truly like was like, the answer is no, like I'm not supposed to go, which then for me, I met my husband like when I was 19. And so like, who knows what would have happened. Like, it's funny for you, going on a mission led you to your husband, and not going on a mission led me to mine. Yeah. And it's like, that was what God had in store for me. And so, so I'm grateful for that. And I am confident in my decision. Like, I don't, like, it doesn't, I shouldn't say like I feel judgment, like I don't, but there are just things that sometimes I like want to share. Yeah, just my story. So I'm glad that you asked me. Yeah. So thanks. No, I appreciate it. That, but... No, I'm glad to share, because I think it is just good to know both sides. And so anyway, the thought that I was saying was that I've always been so impressed at how good of a missionary you are, because I feel like partially because I didn't serve a mission, I am sometimes a little bit more apprehensive to like bring up things in person, which might sound funny, and I feel like I'm getting less that way, but we were in the same ward for a long time, and I would see Grace like reach out to people and like say things that like I would never say, but that were so good. Just things of like, are you coming to Sunday school? Like, are you coming? Like, and I was just always so impressed at like your boldness in sharing the gospel, which I love about you. And anyway, so I've just always been really impressed with you and your testimony.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's talk now about, just briefly, about making Easter more Christ-centered. I thought this would just be fun to chat about it a little bit. This is something that, like, obviously we've seen the church really push recently, and I think it's great. I think that it's an important thing. But I will say, like, I haven't really done it in the past. I don't know. I feel like having kids makes you, like, care more about holidays again.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like this year I'm just starting to, like we'll actually do a little, like, Easter egg hunt and actually do, like, an Easter basket. And so starting to get into those things, and something that, like, is a really big goal in my life is to have good traditions for my kids.
Same with me. That's the same. It's like, all of a sudden it's like, wait, we're the ones that need to create these traditions. And you don't want to gyp the first kid and be like, oh, we didn't realize this tradition until the fifth kid. Or, I mean, I don't want 5 kids. Let's bring that back. The third kid, the fourth kid, you know, like. Yeah. So it's hard to, like, all of a sudden, like, okay, these are big decisions. It feels like, at least as a mom, it feels like these big decisions.
Totally. Well, and it feels hard to implement when you only have one and they're little. So you're
and they don't even understand or care.
Okay, so the tradition is we're all going to share something
that we love about Jesus. And they're, like, looking at you like, what the crap?
This is funny, and maybe I'll cut this out, but I told Austin, and I was dead serious when I brought this up. I was like, what if we, like, reenacted like
Oh gosh.
I meant like how in like we act
The
out the
nativity.
nativity.
Yeah.
I was like, someone can be like the angel and Mary. I'm like, I still think it could be.
It could
cool.
work.
But he was like, I don't know if that's too far. I was like, maybe it is. But anyway, maybe you'll catch my family
For some reason
doing
the birth
that.
doesn't. The birth feels like
It feels
okay,
a little
but
different.
It feels okay to like
and I don't mean
replicate
that to be
baby Jesus. Sometimes it's like, do we want to replicate like
I
resurrection
know,
Jesus?
so maybe that's sacrilegious. No one do that tradition, but anyway.
It's a good idea though. Like a good like. Just trying to figure out.
Think of something.
Trying to think of some things.
Okay, so anyway, I asked for some submissions on Instagram, and so we'll just talk about just a couple of these and then any other ideas that you have. One of the ones that I liked, which we talked about music a little bit, but would just said, music, we've always played music as a family and individuals. It brings the spirit so well. And I think that that's so good. I am not musical at all. Austin's family's really musical, so they can do like fun stuff like that. So for me, it's not like playing music as a family,
Yeah.
but like listening.
For sure.
And I am obsessed with Christian music, like Protestant Christian music. And that seriously does like bring the spirit so much for me. And that's been a great way as a mom, like even aside from Easter, to like just exactly what we were talking about, to feel the spirit day to day when maybe I'm not getting in that specific one-on-one time with God in the scriptures, to just like listen to that in the car. And as you're like singing the words, it helps build your testimony because you're singing them and then you feel the spirit and you're like, oh my gosh, that's true. Like that is true what I just said. And so anyway.
Well, when kids pick up on it, like I'll have to show you this video after, but my sister's little girl, she's almost 2, and Charlotte has been playing Rescue by Lauren Daigle.
Oh, such a good song.
And her daughter, I have to show you the video. It is the cutest thing. She like gets into it. She's like, I will. And like she's like praising Jesus as she sings this. And you can tell she's feeling it in her heart. She's not even 2 yet. And so it's like the kids feel it too. And so like making sure that like, if that's included in your home, like not only is it going to touch us, but the kids notice.
Yeah, that's
even
so
at a young
good.
age. It's cute though. I'll show you.
That's so cute. I definitely want to see it. That's amazing. Okay, and then another one, Easter eggs filled with different symbols.
Love that.
So cute. It feels like a little bit of work to me.
Callie paused. I'm like, wait. I'm like, what is she gonna say?
I think that is such a fun idea, and I think that that's something that like maybe next year.
Oh yeah,
when my daughter can like tell a little bit more. But anyway, I think that that's such a cute idea. But that kind of goes hand in hand with another one of my favorite submissions that I got. It says, not necessarily an idea, but to the overwhelmed mom. It's not about adding more things to do, but rather whatever you're going to do it intentionally focused on him.
Love it.
And I loved that so much.
It's so true.
And like I am someone who like I do like to do the fun things like that. Like let's make something fun and do the symbols and like put them in the Easter eggs. And I think that that's great. But I also think it's like, I don't think we're going to do something like that this year.
Yeah.
But being intentional about like, who is this day about? Even just like for us right now, our daughter is like a little bit too young, I think, to really, I mean, we can talk to her about it. Yeah. But to just be like intentional with ourselves of like, what is this day about? What is this holiday about?
Well, it's so interesting because, and this is nothing against my parents. I think this is, again, it's kind of a newer thing that I think the church has kind of emphasized. And I think honestly, I follow a lot of other like people on Instagram that are Christians, and I feel like it's overall like a theme of we need to be bringing Christ back into Easter.
Yes.
Kind of like, I feel like a few years ago it was like bringing Christ back into Christmas. Yeah. And not so commercialized. And I feel like people are starting to realize that about Easter of like, okay, why do we actually celebrate Easter? And for myself, even like, I always knew like, okay, yeah, we're celebrating the resurrection of Christ. And we always went to church, right, on Easter Sunday. And, but we'd always have our Easter baskets too. And I think just trying to find ways of it wasn't honestly until I was an adult, until I really realized like, oh, there's like a week of Easter actually. Right. Like every day. I'm like, well, of course, like we need to be remembering the Garden of Gethsemane, Christ suffering for us. Of course we need to be remembering his crucifixion. Of course we need to be remembering the Last Supper. Like there's so many pivotal things that are happening this week that I've never really processed or really thought about. And it's something that I personally want to really like start. And I need to our ward actually did like, they handed out these cards for each day, and our
cute.
ward has activities all week, different like
No
days.
way.
It's actually been really neat. Like they had
that
a
is
Palm
cool.
Sunday walk. We didn't go to it, but we had a Palm
But
Sunday
it was a good
walk.
idea.
And one of the days is like, I can't remember all the days right now, but they're having like a Easter dinner, I think, on like the Last Supper day, and it was super cute. And so it's made me like really want to be like, okay, like I want to be intentional, and then starting traditions with our kids of like, okay, what are things that simple things we can do each day leading up to Easter to help our kids. Obviously, my daughter's 10 months old. She doesn't understand anything. Of course, I'm still going to do an Easter basket.
Of course.
Of things that she doesn't need. Just kidding. It's actually things that she all needs. But, and so just trying to find traditions of like, okay, like how can we truly bring Christ back into Easter? Because I think a lot of kids, if you were to ask, like, why do we celebrate Easter? They would be like, the Easter Bunny.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think a lot of kids really realize that.
Totally.
And I want to make sure our kids realize, like, okay, yeah, Easter Bunny comes and brings an Easter basket, but, like, that's this portion of Easter, but this is actually what Easter's about.
Yeah, totally.
And so
I love that. I really love the idea of celebrating Holy Week, too.
Holy Week. Thank you. See, I didn't even know what the name of the week was. I'm like, Easter week. Goes to show you.
And I think that I was just looking on Gospel Library that they have like study for each day. And so I'm thinking that maybe this week, which this podcast is going to come out, it's going to be Easter in a few days. But I think that throughout this week, I'm going to try to like be studying that.
Yeah.
At least I want to, because just hearing you like bring up the parts of Christ's life that lead up to like go throughout this week, it like, yes, it's so many of like the crucial parts of the story. Mm-hmm. And so just an opportunity to remember that and then to like teach your kids about it. I think that it's really cool. Were there any other ideas that you had?
Something fun that actually my mom did growing up is we called them resurrection rolls. And
Amazing.
I don't remember like the exact like recipe, but it was pretty much like croissant roll that was in the package, and that represented the tomb.
Oh,
they each represent something else, and then the marshmallow represented Christ. There was like brown sugar cinnamon that represented something. Anyways, you roll it up and then you put it in the oven and bake it. Then you pull it out, and when you break open the croissant dough, it's empty. So, like, the tube's empty.
Oh, that's so cute.
So I remember doing, like, that growing up, and I thought that was, like, a fun, creative way to teach kids. So but it was also fun, and they were so delicious, too.
Yeah.
And so I remember, like, we did that growing up, and I want to do that with our kids as, obviously, we have more when they get older.
I love that. That's so cute.
Yeah.
Kids love those kinds of things, too.
And it's those things, like, that stuck
like
with
you
me, and I'm now
remember
25.
that. Yeah.
And then something I've talked to Austin a little bit about that I'm still trying to figure out, like, if this is something that we'd want to do, but trying to decide of, like, okay, like, obviously we're going to still celebrate Easter Bunny, Easter baskets, like, that's, like, childhood. But I'm trying to, like, decide, I'm like, this is what I would love to do for my family. Obviously, like, we're going to be celebrating with other family probably, so it depends on, you know, in-laws and my parents and stuff. But I would love to do, like, Easter Bunny, Easter Saturday, and do, like, you know, the Easter Bunny comes on that Saturday, and we do our Easter egg hunt and whatever. And then Sunday is just, like, Jesus Easter. Like, Sunday is, like, where we celebrate. Mm-hmm. You know, obviously we can celebrate it all week, but just focusing. So it's, really like, we go to church for Easter and for Christ. Like, we're going to celebrate the resurrection of Christ. And then, because I feel like growing up, it was just, like, waking up, like, getting our Easter baskets, all this stuff, and then we'd, like, go to church, we'd come home and, like, do a bigger Easter egg hunt, which is so fun, too.
Totally.
But I'm like, if I can figure out how to, like, convince my entire extended family to do all of that Saturday, so then Sunday can be, like, focused on Christ, and maybe you do an Easter egg hunt on Sunday with the symbols, or, you know, but I don't know. So that's something that I would love to do, like, in a perfect world. Like, that's something I would love to do with my family. But obviously it's, we'll see.
I love that. Just like we both said, it's like a goal of ours to do traditions. I think that is what makes your family feel like family. Like, that's what, like, signals to kids, like, this is our family. We do these things every year. So I'm excited to do those things, and it'll be fun to see kind of how it turns out throughout the years.
Throughout the years,
I feel like this has been a great conversation.
Yeah,
There's
been
been
fun.
a lot that I know that I have like learned from and grown from. So thank you so much for being willing to share, for being willing to come.
Thanks for inviting me and allowing me to share my simple testimony of different things. So thanks.
Yeah, of course. Well, I love you. I'm so grateful for you. So grateful for your friendship. It has been such a blessing in my life. I'm so grateful for it.
Okay. Keep listening every week. You guys better listen or I'll find you. Just kidding. You don't have to put that in.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. As always, I really appreciate it. If you haven't had a chance, please subscribe. Please send in any of your thoughts, any questions or comments that you have. So grateful for you being here. So grateful for Grace, and we will see you later.